So, Connor, how much money have you made
Oh my.
over the last 2 weeks?
I'll actually tell you right this very second, Rado, how much money I've made. I'll just open my app here. I have made negative £4 and 18 pence.
That's not bad.
Uh,
And how much did you invest?
Not a lot, not a lot. I was following it from quite early on in the week with all of the GameStop stuff, and then it eventually moved into like AMC and Nokia were there for a while. BlackBerry, a few others were kind of having moments thanks to the Wall Street Bets subreddit. I was following it from early on in the week, but it was only really later in the week when I decided just to have a little bit of fun. So I kind of take it as like, like people would kind of refer to it as like Vegas rules. Like you just put down what you're like happy to lose. So I put down like 30 quid with the intention being like, there's a pair of Nike trainers that I want to buy. So like, there's a chance maybe if I put this down that I could get those trainers for half price, or maybe even get them for free if things went really, really well. But either way, not too much risk, just more so that I had a little bit of, something to kind of follow along with, as opposed to just kind of standing on the sidelines. So so far, as of recording, it is Monday, and I think Monday the 2nd, and I think Tuesday. What day are we on? Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah,
It's
today's Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday the 2nd. Oh yeah. Okay, so yeah, Tuesday the 2nd, and when I opened my app this morning, that I'm using to kind of trade with it, I got a notice being like, yeah, they've pulled trading on AMC today, and some of the others. So I think it's just been a slow decline across most of the afternoon into the
I
evening.
didn't know what was going on, actually, thanks to kind of you. It tipped me over, said, oh, check this out.
Mm-hmm.
And I started reading and digging into it. I was just like, this is incredible, whatever is happening.
Yeah.
Like a group of people decides to take on Wall Street and revive, like a company I've not heard about because we don't live in the US. GameStop is probably something similar to, what's the UK equivalent of GameStop?
It is just Game here.
Game, yeah.
That being said, GameStop did trade here for a number of years too. You could find GameStops in, I don't know if in the UK, but certainly in the Ireland here, there used to be a GameStop right here in Belfast. So, but they stopped trading here a while back. They've been declining a lot recently.
Yeah, and you also texted me that you are helping to revive cinemas, which was also like euphemism saying, I'm gonna make some money and be rich. Oh.
that was the dream, right?
That was a dream, but listen, but I know people who invested $30 or $50 in Bitcoin when Bitcoin was like worth £1 or a couple of pounds. And now they either have a lot of money or they sold it. They actually bought something with Bitcoin back then, and now they regret it. So there are stories like that. My friend, I used to work with a guy who bought some Bitcoin, and he said, when Bitcoin wasn't that expensive, I paid for pizza with Bitcoin.
Oh
I was stupid.
Oh. Heartbreaking, yeah. So Bitcoin's trading at what? It's 30,000 or something.
Yeah,
dollars per like coin or whatever the hell the way they kind of measure it. Yeah, I found this all so deeply fascinating for so many reasons. I think when you kind of zoom back, there's a lot of kind of the echoing of, if you remember from about 10 years ago now, the Occupy Wall Street movement.
Yeah.
But back then, we didn't quite have access to the same sort of technology and the same sort of platforms, and critically, the same information. And I think that's what has kind of changed in this last week, is that there's over the kind of last 10 years, there's been this point where just sort of, to quote unquote regular people, but has access to the same information that like traders would have had. They have the same information now. Like, it doesn't take a degree or a friend or a family member who already is in in Wall Street and trading for you to kind of get into it. It doesn't require you to read books and books and books of information. Like, it takes a phone and an app, and a little bit of knowledge around how the whole thing kind of works. And if you're lucky enough to be part of a subreddit that's willing to like just hand out pieces of information, and I think that's what has changed so much, and this is just an example of it. I do think it's the case in many other industries across the world right now, is this democratization of tools and information. Everybody suddenly has, like, everyone is getting closer to being on the same playing field when it comes to like having stuff at their fingertips that allows them to progress in the world in whatever way you want to consider progression. But you have that ability now, whereas I feel like even 10 years ago, it was still a little bit of a pipe dream. Back then, you still needed, an education to be able to get into trading, or to be incredibly lucky. Whereas I feel like that is leveling out a little bit. But it's leading to a lot of really interesting situations around the world, not just in trading, but politics and everything.
No. But when we talk about this democratization of knowledge, I think also Hollywood is interested, because just within last couple of days, I heard, and you've read the same article, there are actually 2 films in development about this GameStop situation, which is just like, what? I think Hollywood, when they see an interesting title, just kind of like, okay, let's do it. However, I don't know whether one of them is going to be actually completed, when it's going to land, or who's going to buy it, So those things tend to, kind of change and blow with the wind. But I would definitely like to see a very good documentary on this topic, to learn more about the people who, were involved in it, and the reasons behind. Maybe some good interviews as well would be really interesting. Yeah, it's definitely something to kind of educate myself on a little bit. But I'm not sure if I want to see like a fictional, like a film based on a true story. That would be difficult to pull off.
Well, I mean, I think Netflix is making one of these movies. I think they're one of the people who have already kind of declared that they're like already kind of in the like super early stages of having this made. And I can absolutely see Netflix doing like, the kind of well budgeted, well made movie, nothing spectacular, but just, like a few good names attached to the project. And then it's followed up by like The Real Story, which is like the 8-part docuseries, exploring it all. And when I think, first of all, like, the movie sounds kind of a silly premise, but essentially what it is trying to replicate, or I think what they want to be, is The Big Short. That's the goal for a movie like this, right? Can you be The Big Short? Can you be like funny and informative and keep audiences gripped and tell us like a mostly, if not like slightly fictionalized or dramatized version of like a massive event that happened? Because the turnaround time for that movie wasn't very long, right? Because it was 2007, 2008 when you had that financial crash. And when did The Big Short come out? Like 5 or 6 years later? I don't know what year it was, but it didn't feel like it was that far away from when that actually happened. So yeah, if these studios now, they are much quicker to move, and they see an event like this and it's like, all right, get writers, get people to do scripts and all sorts of stuff that we can do. Like, can we get people names attached to it to build hype, etc., etc. And it might get kicked around for a few years before eventually getting made into something, and it might just fall through entirely. But either way, I think you're right. I would quite enjoy a documentary into it as well, because it is a fascinating historical event at this point. What it was such a flash in the pan moment. You can see like from today, it seems like it's losing steam. People are losing the interest in it.
Or is it?
Maybe
it might be a moment when all those things are going down in price, and now people buy again, and then it goes up. I think it put a smile on my face when I learned that all those hedge funds, kind of companies that make billions of dollars on misfortune of other companies and stuff like that, they losing money. And I was like, okay, if that's one good thing that came out of it, okay, I'm happy with this.
I did think about should someone who records a movie podcast own shares in a movie? In a cinema chain? That was like, I'm not a journalist. I have no ethics. All right, it doesn't matter here.
No, absolutely not. If you own, shares in a company that's in the US, who cares?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, let's kick off the show properly, Connor.
Cool.
You ready?
I was born ready.
Hello and welcome to The Blockbusters, a podcast about the wonderful world of cinema and TV, about the movies we love, no matter how big, no matter how small. My name is Rado Falto. That's not right. My name's Connor Boyle. That's right. I'm doing the intro today.
Yes.
That's Rado Falto.
What's going
on? We're here. Both of us are here today to talk about movies. We do it it's like an almost weekly podcast, or like every 2 weeks. Is that a bi-weekly podcast? I don't know. But look, if you've been listening, thank you so much. Subscribe to it if you haven't been. If this is your first time listening, leave us a rating, a comment. All of that stuff really, really helps. And recommend all of our rants to your friends and enemies. They absolutely deserve it. They deserve to hear it. If anything's going to pick people up right now, it's going to be us, okay? Don't forget to check out our website. It's theblockbusters.net. It's nice and super clean and tidy looking because I designed it along with the artwork. Rado, however, does all of the editing of the episodes, and that's why they sound spectacular every single week, because I could not do that for the life of me. It would just be like everything would be blown out. It would sound terrible. You can find us online. We got Twitters. You got at Blockbusters Pod, at RD Folta is for Rado, and I am at Design Connor. And we also have a letterboxd account. Each of us do. The Blockbusters is our podcast one. RADOX is Rado's, and I have a sort of stagnant one that I'm thinking of getting going again. It's CNRBYL. So that's our letterboxd accounts if you want to follow us on there. And again, like, subscribe, comment, and all that sort of stuff over there. And of course, you can find us on all of the usual platforms around the world: Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Pocket Cast, Amazon Music, and probably somewhere else as well. Anyway, this is the show. We've got some news for you, and then a couple of things that we want to talk about today that we've been watching recently.
How does it feel, Connor? How does it feel to open the episode?
I've never done it.
Open the show.
Yeah, but just before the episode,
you did a pretty good job, to be honest.
I stumbled at a few points, but I'm pretty good at ad-libbing, apparently. So it feels powerful. I'll give you that. Yeah, we'll take it in turns from now on, go week to week.
Yes, I really enjoyed it. I think I might just give it to you for the next 30 episodes, and I'll come back to it about like 60 episode 66. I'll come back to it. So we usually kind of go through news at the very beginning. That's what we want to do at right now as well. And there wasn't that much news, when I was kind of checking what has been happening recently. Not much stuff going on. I know there is right now a lot of information is coming from Sundance in terms of the festival and the films, because Sundance is taking place mostly virtually. So people are kind of reviewing stuff, but I've got nothing to say on Sundance. I think there will be some few exciting films once they are purchased by big companies and they will scheduled to be released. I'll be keeping an eye on it. I have some news about kind of other stuff. I found out what the Matrix 4 title most likely will be, and it's gonna called Matrix Resurrections. So this is the film that's going to be out later on this year. And this is the fourth film after Matrix, The Matrix Reloaded, and Matrix Revolutions. Apparently, someone who was working on the production got a gift wrapping, and on that gift wrapping there was written Matrix Resurrections. And they posted it on Instagram. And that's how people kind of found out about it. So there is not kind of a surprise. This is another R in the title,
suits,
and the resurrection sounds quite well, right? So they're gonna be resurrecting whatever was left of Matrix. Are you excited for that movie?
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, was I excited when I heard this title? Not really, because I really enjoyed the first Matrix, but by the third one, I was like, I couldn't care any less about this franchise at this point. So I don't have any real interest in it coming back, other than I think it will be cool to be back in that world and to see how technology has improved so much, and how much they're willing to kind of like push at boundaries now, like they did in the first place with their original trilogy. I think it would be funny for us to take a segment of an episode before it comes out where we try to guess the plot of this movie and see what, because I actually wouldn't know where to start right now. I have no idea where I would even start. So maybe we can do like a Matrix review on the lead up to this, where we watch them all and then we can try and guess the plot of the fourth one before it comes out,
based on what happened in the three previous films.
I feel
that
like
makes sense.
The clue here is to read the Bible, because if you remember from that, Neo is pretty much, they kind of beat you over the head with the fact that he is in fact Jesus
Christ. Yeah.
So I think if you read the Bible
and
read what happens, maybe like after resurrection and stuff like that. Well, there we go, resurrections actually. So yeah, what happens around, I guess, the Easter time is what we're looking for here, right? So
it will be well condensed in 3 days, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so that's news number one. News number two, I kind of think we've discussed it, but you put it in there anyway. New Bond movie is not coming anytime soon.
Yeah.
It's gonna be delayed. It is delayed again. It is October the 8th. And I had this discussion with one of my friends, and he's so annoyed that this movie is, first of all, that is pushed not to maybe June or July, but to October. And we had a very long discussion kind of talking about why you release the film in, let's say, either in April or in October, November. So I think this is just, historically looking at it, it's the best time to get like a film like that to put in a cinema, to get the right audience to go and watch the film, rather than over the summer, like summer blockbuster. This is not a summer blockbuster. Bond, this is going to be rated 15 probably. So family is not going to go and watch that film. And this is mainly for like an older audience, so for people who work, people who can leave the kids with, put them to school or do something else. But I don't know what's going to happen this year, and I hope this will be the final date, because this movie has been released, it's been delayed for right now. This is since April 2020. So it's going to be about a year and a half when we kind of waiting for this. And Daniel Craig is not getting any younger.
So that's actually one of the reasons why I put the story in here, is exactly what you said, is that how many films will we start to see rolling out in the next year or two where they were recorded or shot 2 or 3 or 4 years ago? We have people turning up at like premieres who just don't even look remotely like what they used to before, right? Because like if you especially if you have younger actors in anything, right? By the time they get around to these premieres and they're 4 years older and they look completely different. That was something that came across my mind, is like they just kick these films down the line and they just keep on doing it, hoping that someone somewhere says, all right, it's fine and safe to finally have theaters open again, and I feel like they'll just keep kicking them until that point, but God knows when that will be at this point. At one minute you feel like, oh, we're on track, and then the next thing you're not, oh God, no, we're not. Everything's going wrong. It's all going so wrong.
Imagine Daniel Craig appearing, like in Leicester Square for the film premiere, and instead of being ripped and, cleanly shaved that he's in the film, he's wearing like a big beard, as almost you are, and he's looking more like Russell Crowe these days, with the big belly, and he's like, I'm a spy on Her Majesty's Secret Service. But no, you're not. So that's gonna be funny.
It's true though, like what, in the sense of like, what if he's mid shooting something else and it requires him to be like that, and he has to go
have a mustache or something like that, right?
Exactly, right. So yeah, I think it's just an interesting sort of question to pose. What's next? Cloverfield. You excited about this?
I have always been a big fan of Cloverfield. I think since it came out, the very first Cloverfield movie that was kind of it was conceived partially by J.J. Abrams, and it had this really interesting marketing campaign about it. So you would not know what actually this movie is.
Mm-hmm.
There was literally no videos, no big trailers or stuff like that. There was do you remember MySpace?
Yep.
Yeah, so there was like a profile on MySpace of the character, who's like this guy who lives in New York, and he's planning on having a party and meeting with friends, and then suddenly his entries stop on a specific date, and anyone connected to that universe actually stop posting on the same date. And it was like, what actually happened? And then you had this found footage movie
Mm-hmm.
about a group of people having fun, and then suddenly something's happening in New York. And this is one of my favorite monster movies that was super interesting. The monster was there, but it was not really about the monster. It was more
Yes.
about the people, how it affects their life. Because most of the monster movies is just like, you've got those big shots of like, a giant monkey or, a giant lizard destroying everything. And this is more like, I'm just an average guy. I'm not a scientist. I'm not, someone who works for the army, for the government, just a regular person. And I really enjoyed that film. And then we had Cloverfield Paradox, which was kind of rubbish. And 10 Cloverfield Lane, which again, that was a kind of a good film. People in the bunker, something's happening outside. They don't know what actually is going on. I enjoyed that film.
That
so
film
much.
just fell apart in the last third.
Yeah, it sort of did.
Yeah, coming out of the
if you were
bunker
there-
was a bad idea.
Yeah. Listen, if you were there for the surprise, doesn't matter what surprise you're gonna get, you're gonna be a little bit disappointed. But again, I enjoyed the setup of it. So we're gonna get a Cloverfield sequel, which is gonna be a sequel to the very first Cloverfield film. Sounds interesting. Just wanted to put it in there.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, the news is for me quite simple. So Hollywood doesn't have any new ideas, so they just kind of keep reinventing the old ones. But I'm quite curious what the take's gonna be on that. Whether this is gonna be another found footage or is it gonna be something completely different. Yeah, it's in works. Just wanted to put in there.
Yeah, because the found footage stuff works, and we kind of discussed something similar with Paranormal Activity, where in a similar way, it's mostly CCTV footage that they've recorded there, or like not CCTV, but someone's put the camera up in their house. It doesn't really focus on the poltergeist. It's kind of like almost practically not even in the movie. And it's kind of focused around the characters, and then by the time you get to like the third or fourth one where they're doing the same thing again and it's still sort of found footage, you're kind of bored of it. It loses the charm after a while, and it's like, would I care about watching another Cloverfield where they did more found footage? I don't think so. I think 10 Cloverfield Lane was probably the best sort of sequel that you could do to that, where it's a character driven, it's happening in that world, and something they know something's happening, but they're not quite sure what's happening, and we're just kind of following that story. And it didn't have to be found footage then, so maybe they'll come up with something similar to that, or maybe they'll go the complete opposite direction and they will make this one more of like a military related movie. Will follow soldiers or something like that in it.
It might be one of those big, Hollywood movies with special effects and obviously stupid army, and then maybe one smart, intelligent person, like a scientist, who's saying, "Oh no, don't do this," and everyone's like just doing the opposite thing.
You always think that that's kind of like, you think that when you watch those sort of movies, you're like, this is so ridiculous. Obviously, people would be listening to this person. He's a scientist or she's a scientist. They're the smart person, right? And then you get to the real world right now, and it turns out people don't do that at all.
Exactly. So that's
Don't
super
do it
realistic.
at all.
So we shouldn't be complaining anymore if people like in the movies don't listen to scientists. They just don't do it in the real life
It's
anyway.
an accurate film. Do you know that?
Yeah. Last news you're probably going to be a little bit excited about. Walt Disney Company has extended their relationship with Black Panther director and co-writer Ryan Coogler. So he made like a 5-year exclusive deal with television deal with Disney Plus, and he will be developing like a new television series for the studio that's probably set somewhere in Wakanda, in the Wakanda verse. And that's going to be another 5 years of Ryan Coogler's life, which is exciting and a shame a little bit, because I think he's such a talented director. He shouldn't be just, sticking to working for Disney and Marvel. I think he should be doing his stuff he's done independently as well. But maybe it's just a way of getting some money to do his independent projects. Because I think, okay, fair enough, those directors like Taika, like Ryan, just bring quite a lot of good new perspective into MCU in general and Disney. But again, I don't want them just to stick there and just be comfortable with shitloads of money, and I want them to do something else, something more edgy. That's my view on that.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious as to how much he's actually going to be linked to any of this other than being executive producer, because when he's obviously doing the Black Panther sequel, and this partnership is with his production company. As opposed to just he's signing on to do a bunch of projects with him. It's more that his production company are going to deal with a TV series, and that production company is also owned by like Ludwig Göransson, for example, who does the soundtrack to Mandalorian, so it's likely, and I see in the article as well, they mention like what that media company intends to do, or what they're kind of like were set up to do, which is everything from soundtracks to podcasts to like event driven feature films. So I could see him being like executive producing something, essentially, where he's involved with it at a very high level, but it's set up by other people to direct, and maybe they bring in Ludwig Göransson to do the soundtrack again. Maybe they are able to go and do podcasts based on other like other TV shows outside of the Wakanda stuff. There's all sorts of kind of cool stuff that they could do there, I said this is exciting news probably for you more than for me. Like I said, I want Ryan Coogler to do something else than just another Black Panther verse, but I'm sure there are fans of that stuff. Anyway, so do we have any other news? Anything else we wanted to add to this? Nope,
bit?
I think that's it.
No? Okay, so that's it. So amazing. So we've smashed through the news today. Hopefully this is not going to be this 7-hour episode like we tend to do recently. But I had an idea, Connor, that we will not be talking about everything we've watched recently, because I kind of plow through a lot, and I've noticed that you maybe watch some stuff as well on the side, apart from the stuff that we review. But I wanted you to be harsh on yourself, and I'll be harsh on myself on my list, and select one thing, something we can call pick of the week, something we can just recommend, something we've not watched together, because what we're going to do next is review a few films we both watched. So you have, let's say, 30 seconds to sell me on something. Start now.
I'm going to recommend Inside Pixar on Disney Plus. Have you seen this?
No, that's why you selling this to me. So I have no idea what that is.
It's a short series that appeared on Disney Plus. Each of the episodes are about 10 to 15 minutes long. There are 5 of them, I believe. And it is basically, as far as I know, I think it kind of spawned out of lockdown a little bit, where they kind of follow 5 key people at Pixar, kind of people who are behind the scenes. You've got, just to name a few, like Kemp Powers, who wrote a sequence or a part of Soul. Who else have we got? Stephen Hunter, Jessica Haidt. They're people who work behind the scenes at Pixar. And some of them very much like have done huge things at Pixar as well, from like coming up with the initial idea and script for Onward, for example, and it kind of follows how did that come about, right? In like a 10-minute episode about I think it was Dan Scanlon, that one, episode 5. So he just talked about like how he lost his dad. He never knew his dad, actually. Like his dad died when he was incredibly young, so it was his older brother and his mum who essentially brought him up in life, and that is very much the inspiration behind something like Onward. And then we have someone else who will talk about their artwork and what it means to be like an artist at Pixar and to create something. And another one of the episodes is based on someone who wrote Out, which is one of the Pixar shorts. And it was about them, like, coming out in life, for example, and, how difficult that was coming from like a small town in Canada or something like that there. So all very short, easy to watch, but, a great little insight into the kind of creative minds that, tick at that keep Pixar ticking over, I think. Good show.
And that's available on Disney Plus, right?
Disney Plus, yeah. It doesn't take up
Great.
a lot of your time, honestly. You can watch like one a day if you just like a real quick sort of 10-15 minute and watch them all in one sitting.
Yes,
good.
Yes, tell me more about this, like short kind of things to watch, because recently I've been trying to watch movies, but if I see the movie is longer than 2 hours, I kind of like, do I have to watch this? So I love those short things that I can just really quickly come back to and watch something and just maybe move on or do something else. So my pick of the week, and I've watched so many things recently, I had a problem with choosing it, but this is going to be something that's available in the US on HBO Max and in the UK on BBC iPlayer or BBC. This is a TV series called Love Life. Have you heard about it?
I have not heard about it, no.
So this is a 10-episode, like an almost anthology series with Anna Kendrick. So she plays this girl that falls in love in one episode, and then the next episode is a different person, and the third episode is a different person that she falls in love with. It's, it kind of sounds silly, it's another kind of like comedy, stupid comedy. And if you don't like Anna Kendrick, I think for some people it might be kind of difficult to jump on, because I know some people have a problem with her voice, with her expressions, with her physicality. But if you kind of like forget about this and look into this story, you will see kind of a bittersweet comedy, like a romantic comedy about life, about how love is important, how kind of it shows itself in the different stages of your life, through different people you with. So you can always say, okay, it's probably, this is just gonna be like guys, maybe she gonna have like a romance with the girl. I'm not gonna say yes or no, but there's also, people from the family that are quite important, people who she's really close to as friends. And there are some kind of darker episodes in there, but I really enjoyed it. I kind of like, the one episode ended and I was like, I want to see a little bit more. And then the second episode, and it ended on a very, very bitter note, like a surprising note as well. There's like, what's going to happen next? This episode, this TV series has great cast. Anna Kendrick, got Zoe Chow, got Leslie Manville, she's a narrator of that, and you have Scott McNairy or Kingsley Ben-Adir in there. So few recognizable faces from the TV shows, from movies as well. I cannot kind of emphasize how interesting this TV series is. And like I said, you might hate Anna Kendrick for whatever reason you want. I know one person in this household that hate them, but that person actually said, let's watch it, and she enjoyed it so much. Wow. Love Life, this is available on BBC iPlayer or HBO Max if you're listening to us in the US of A. That's America. Connor, before we move on to reviews, or maybe we should just move into reviews, I wanted to say something to our listeners who maybe just been listening to us from time to time. For about 3 months, we've been discussing that we need to review Cobra Kai. Do you remember? Like, we probably started in November, the moment that even earlier than that, when Cobra Kai landed on Netflix. I watched the first series, then watched the second series, and I watched the Karate Kid again. And I thought to myself, this is great. Let's review it. And we've never come to review it properly because obviously we were kind of like waiting. Oh, let's maybe just wait for series 3. So now we have 3 series on Netflix. That was the very first TV show that's kind of like dropped on streaming services in 2021. And okay, let's do it then. So we started discussing that. I finished watching it, and you were like, I still haven't finished it. And just recently, you texted me saying, you know what? I'm not sure what to do with Cobra Kai because it's kind of shit, isn't it? And I think this is a good starting point to discuss this show, maybe review it in general. But I want to start there that, I kind of, when my friend told me about this 2018, I think he watched it when it was on YouTube because that's how it came out first. He said, Rado, this is great. You love A80s, you're going to enjoy this TV show. I kind of saw the trailer. I was just like, nah, it's not going to be for me. It's not going to be for me. Then it dropped on Netflix and I started watching it and I just like couldn't stop watching. Series 1, I think, was brilliant. It was essentially like the first film finished, and then few years in the future, you have the same characters. So you have Daniel and you have Johnny on kind of opposite sides where they were in the film. Daniel LaRusso was this guy who came from Brooklyn or from Bronx, from somewhere, and he came to California. And he was the outsider. He didn't have that much money. He lived in really like kind of like crappy apartment. And he was bullied. And then you had Johnny, who was with this Cobra Kai guys. And he was this kind of wealthy guy, good looking, had the girls. And then they kind of started clashing. And now in a new version, like in the future, Johnny is this kind of loser, drinking, washed out. And Daniel is the successful guy, And he's kind of a dick as well. And I really enjoyed this kind of like play between them, between the past and the present, and how those two characters have changed over time. And obviously what happens is they start training people, and there's a big tournament. If you watch series 1, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a big tournament towards the end, and then you have a surprising winner of that tournament. And it was such a good thing to finish this TV show on. Like it felt like, okay, it deserved it. And then series 2 rolled out, and I had this, whatever you were texting me, oh my god, it's so hard to get through that series because it's just getting more and more ridiculous. So what's your problem with Cobra Kai? Like, tell me a little bit about it, because I'm super interested to hear this.
Yeah, I think I agree pretty much with what you said, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I felt like we should chat about it, and I posed the question to you about what I should do, because I kind of felt a bit of a dilemma. There is a little bit of a debate, like, should you give your opinion on something in a sort of formal way if you haven't seen it all, right? Because obviously when it comes to something like a TV series, they can have big swings. Plot points can be revealed that make you really love a show by the end of it, even if you felt like you were kind of not enjoying it up to a certain point. But I just really struggled with Cobra Kai. I loved season 1. I thought it was super fun. It was such a clever and fun way to go back. And it was cheesy and it was kind of corny, and it had a sense of charm to it. And again, it was a clever premise, like to pick up something like that and to bring it back. And then season 2 felt more... I remember watching season 2 and I was like, I feel like I am watching reruns of 90210 on E4, like 10 years ago. Like, it was like 90210 Cobra Kai. It was such. It reminded me of that period of TV when the writer's strike happened a long time ago, if you remember that, when everything just got really bad for a while.
I do.
It's kind of what it felt like, where like the writers for season 2, just completely different writers from season 1, and they were so focused on writing this all of these sort of like romance points. It was like everybody was like it was like teen drama, and like the whole like high school and who's going with who, and they're like they're cheating each other, and they're like going to parties and drinking, and then it's getting out of control, and oh my goodness, I'm like, I don't care. I wanted to see people fight in a dojo, or maybe like a car park or something like that. And then you have that guy. Right, and I get that this show was at one point anyway, it was all about like misfits and like being a misfit and what's it like to be a misfit. All right, and you had the guy, and they tried to give him a little bit of an emotional background with the mohawk, right? And they try to give him a little bit of
okay. You're talking about the hawk, yeah?
And yeah, they tried to give him some like emotional depth, right? There was one episode where you kind of got a little bit of a flashback into what school was like for him and why maybe he is the way that he is. But he is such a piece of shit in this fucking show. And that fucking hair, I cannot deal with that hair. And it's not, I have nothing against mohawks, but there's something about the ridiculousness of his mohawk on his head in this show while he's doing karate that I just can't get behind. I can't get behind Dorado. It's too difficult. And no one in the show is really that good of an actor. None of them are.
No,
they
absolutely
are all
not.
kind of bad in many ways. And there's like, I feel like Daniel and Johnny are probably the best in terms of like acting, and that's saying something, right? It's not spectacular either, but it's okay, it's good enough. But all of the kids, and the same with 90210, like the kids are all playing like 15, 16-year-olds, and you look them up and they're like 25. So they're, and it's like, you don't look like a 15-year-old, I know they're trying to make you look like a 15-year-old, but you don't look like one. So you don't.
Yeah.
And I've been trying season 3, and I've kind of forced myself through the first maybe like 2 episodes, and then I came back and I did episode 3, and then I did episode 4. And then every time, like literally every evening, like night after night, I would sit down and I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch Cobra Kai. And then I realized I would rather watch anything else on planet Earth than watching another episode of this show. Okay. It was so difficult to do. And, maybe one of these days I'll put it on and I'll just let them play through. I mentioned to you I've got some time off coming up soon. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe I'll just put on Cobra Kai and just let it play through and just force myself to do it like some sort of torture chamber. But if I don't know what there is for me to gain from it. I've heard a few people say that the season 3 made them cry and stuff like that there. And I'm like, what the fuck season of TV were you watching? Because what I've seen so far, and it's the same, we're going through the same cycles already. We're only in season 3, and I feel like we're already looping back around the same cycles and the same stories. Like, Johnny gets a little bit Johnny is back to being a kind of a drunk and a bit like, worse for wear and down on his luck. And Danny is like, trying to be good, but kind of getting caught up in it all a little bit too much and getting carried away. And, I'm like, please, we've covered this already. Just anything else would be interesting now at this point. And then you had, I gotta spoil some of it here. You had the end of season 2. I've given this way too much time already, but you had the end of season 2. And if you care about the show and watching it, I guess skip for a minute, and if you don't, then just listen. But where they got into this fight in the school at the end of season 2, right?
Like a big brawl.
Oh my god, it goes on for so long, and in theory I should have loved it. Like, I'm like, this is what I want from the show, right? I want the people doing karate, like I want these people doing cool stuff. And a lot of the kids are good at karate, from someone who knows nothing about it, but it doesn't look, and I will credit that actually with Hawk is the best at this, where he looks like convincing when he's fighting people. he looks ferocious and he looks convincing, like when it comes to fighting, but everything else where it requires sort of any range of emotion, he just falls apart completely. It's just always this fucking stupid face that he has. And then they kick Miguel off the railing, and they do the slow-mo fall as he clearly shatters his spine. And you think, oh, Miguel's dead. And then by like the end of episode 1 in the next one, they're like, nah, I think Miguel's going to be all good. It doesn't look, no problems here.
Wow.
We're ready to get him back up and running.
What are you talking about? No, Miguel's not going to be great. He's never going to walk again.
Well, that's what I'm saying. As far as I've seen into it, I know there was like, I've seen him, he's still in hospital, but for someone who got kicked over a railing and fell, like, 2 flights of stairs and landed on his spine, I'm like, this, after being in a fight as well, a very long fight, I felt like Miguel probably should be dead. So, like, yeah, maybe I'll update you in a few weeks' time if I get around to forcing myself to watching it. But honestly,
the good that we're having this discussion, because first of all, I don't want to force you to watch anything, and if it's something's not giving you this, like, you feel like it's ridiculous, it's too much time, it's just pain, why watch it? I've probably started few TV shows when I thought to myself, nah, I ain't watching this anymore, this is not worth it, and don't do it for my sake. But I agree with you, like, first series was so great, then series 2 I felt something isn't quite right, but I still went through with it, and then I enjoyed the finale. But I think I'm trying to kind of put my finger on it. Why is it such a phenomenon? Because on one hand, it's got bad acting, it's got cheesy music, it's got those plot lines or plot holes or kind of developments that are like from the soap opera, straight away from the soap opera, teenage soap opera. And like, I think everyone slept with everyone at this point, and now they're gonna be kind of doing the second rounds with each other. That this is how ridiculous it is, and like, you can't treat it seriously. I think there is still something about this TV show that it kind of doesn't treat itself too seriously, and that's why I kept on pressing with it. It embraces what it is. It embraces that it is just like this half an hour ridiculous, a little bit over the top kind of teenage kind of drama / karate film that you will root for the good characters to still be good, don't turn to bad, and you will root for those bad characters to kind of fix themselves. But it's not for everyone. I think if you lost interest halfway through season 2, no one will blame you. If you will force yourself, and that will maybe not do this for you. I finished series 3. I think it's just silly, but I understand why people go for series 4. That's gonna be massive. But hey, it is what it is. It is what it is.
I agree. I think it is. It's very much aware of what it is. I just think that they could have also had some good writing while doing that. It doesn't, being self-aware doesn't excuse them for having just terrible plot points. But hey,
I'm gonna teach you the style of karate that was taught to me, a method of fighting your pansy-ass generation desperately needs.
Okay, let's see what you got.
She's a girl.
And?
I'm sorry.
Are you okay?
Girl's a natural cobra.
So this is Cobra Kai series 1, 2, and 3 now available to watch on Netflix, a Netflix phenomenon. It used to be Red. Was it YouTube Red?
Yeah, it was YouTube Red initially.
Do you know anyone who subscribed to YouTube Red?
Still subscribes?
Oh no, it's subscribed in the past. I don't think it is a thing anymore.
It's part of YouTube Premium now, so it is. So you still can get it, and they still are making shows. I have a funny feeling that Draco from Harry Potter is in one at the moment. Actually, that is people are talking about. I don't know if they're talking about it in
exactly.
In
like
good
I don't
sense.
know anyone. I don't know anyone who watches this kind of YouTube Premium who's paying for that. But
no,
that's a different story. Okay. Right, so we got 3 films to cover and another TV show to cover. So let's blitz through this. I recommend you to watch a film.
Yeah.
And the title, like I spoke about this with my friend, and I also wanted to get my girlfriend to watch this. And the title is nothing but appealing. 40-year-old version.
Any more thought on what kind of play we want to write? Remember, if you put in nothing, it'll be nothing.
Like your career?
Remember this face? She was one of Spotlight Magazine's 30 under 30 playwrights to watch. We watched, but where'd she go?
How are you? Good. Archie tells me you're teaching.
How's somebody who ain't had no real hit gonna tell me how to write a play? She ain't no Tyler Perry.
I did win a 30 under 30 award. Yes, it was quite a couple of years ago. What do I gotta do? Write a slave musical, an all-white play?
This some bullshit. It rang a little inauthentic. I asked myself, did a black person really write this?
This some fucking bullshit. Bullshit.
So almost like 40-year-old virgin. It's classic comedy with Steve Carell. But it is not a Steve Carell film. It is completely different. So what's this about? This is a story of Rada, almost like Rado, just with a H over there, and A. She's down on her lucky New York playwright. She's desperate to break through before 40. So she used to be this 30 under 30 list. So she was like this big thing that she will break through and surprise everyone. She hasn't still, and now she's teaching kids in school how to write, and she's working on her play to kind of break through, and that's gonna be called Harlem Avenue. And right now, she actually finds her voice in rapping. So she becomes Radamas Prime.
Great name.
Great name, right? Amazing name. And this is a film that's written, directed, and starring Rada Blank. So she almost plays herself. This is very semi-autobiographical, biographical, this film. It was a 2020 Sundance Film Festival hit. So a lot of people raved about it. And I actually can understand why. You can see this is a black and white film. It's got a lot of great humor in this. It's set in New York. It is almost like a very early Spike Lee film. And it celebrates black women in the cinema like we've not seen before. Yeah. About 40 years old, like the title, and it says, with cracking knees, with amazing rhymes, and with some kind of problems that she has to deal with. I found this movie extremely funny, first of all, bittersweet, and super interesting visually. It just looks incredible. It's something fresh. What was your kind of first impression of that movie?
I feel like this. I think I remember seeing the trailer for this, or maybe you pointed me to it at some point last year. And I think I remember thinking this kind of looks like right up my street. Like I quite enjoy this black and white renaissance that we're going through at the moment with a lot of movies, and big fan of hip hop and New York City obviously as well. Quite interested in that idea, as you mentioned too, about like, it being about a sort of group, or I guess a group that of society that you don't really get that much attention when it comes really at all, but specifically when it comes to cinema, which is that like, for sort of 40-year-old black woman, particularly, still struggling with her career and trying to figure out what it is that she wants to do in life, so it kind of had all of the points where I would have thought this sounds like it's going to be great, but something about it just did not click for me at all. And I don't know what it is, because I do agree with everything that you said. Like, I thought it was, I thought it was wonderfully shot. I thought it had lots of really interesting, like, the camera movements, that with the sort of handheld camera style. I liked the way that she sort of, like, you know, broke the fourth wall from time to time and almost, like, stared back at the audience when certain things would happen in the movie. And it was very subtle. It wasn't used all the time. It was very, very rare, but it was impactful when it happened. Because it was almost a look of like, are you serious? Like, you know, can you believe what's happening right now? And I thought that was quite clever, and I quite liked the characters in it. And you know, I was even taken a little bit by surprise at the end with with her friend, who I thought that it was going to end in tears, and it seemed like that was the direction it was going to go, but then they kind of flip it on its head, and they're like, they kind of make it that their friendship is more important than the sort of professional side that they have going on as well, and maybe it's better to cut the professional ties so that they can continue being, you know, like really, really great friends, like they were kind of always have been. But I think maybe for me what suffered the most is that it was too long, and I didn't find it overly funny. And I think that might just be my sense of humor just didn't quite line up with it or something like that, because it put me a lot in mind of Little Dicky and Dave.
I was thinking about the same thing as
right,
well.
and it's that same kind of premise. Now, obviously, again, this dealing with a much more, what should be much more interesting subject matter with a kind of much more marginalized group, like, you know, this kind of dorky white guy trying to get into hip hop, and he's kind of neurotic and annoying in many ways. It feels like it has been done a lot before, right? But Dave just somehow managed to do a really interesting take on it, and was also ferociously funny. And I just felt like this just wasn't quite there with a lot of the humor for me, and I just found myself maybe smiling at a few parts. And other than the homeless guy, who was fucking hilarious, you know, I didn't quite take to much of the other jokes or the humor in the movie. So I enjoyed it, but would I recommend it to people? Probably not. Would I watch it again? No, I don't think I would.
I'm so disappointed, because I thought this is going to be something up your stream, and now I understand like why you loved Dickie so much, because there was so many little Dickie, Dave, so much, because so many dick jokes, and there is not that many dick jokes in 40-year-old version. That's why it didn't appeal to you that much.
I don't even know if it was the dick jokes. It's maybe the shit jokes or the fart jokes that get me, which there was a few in this year as well, actually. So there was. Which did get a laugh out of me, actually.
Yeah, there you go. I found this.
Does a fart after dinner feel right to you? Hell yes, it does. That was a good line.
Connor, I think this is appealing to people who maybe you would find Little Dicky too offensive. Not that, Radamus Prime is not offensive, but I think her sense of humor and sense of existence is a little bit different. Those two people are kind of two sides of the same coin, but completely different sides of the same coin. I would say completely opposite to you. Would I recommend this movie to someone? Yes, and I did. Would I watch it again? Absolutely yes.
I think one last point. I think maybe for this, the format could have been a TV show for me, and I maybe would have enjoyed it more. Because I think if you made a Dave movie, I don't think I would really enjoy it that much. Mm-hmm. I feel like I would be in a similar position where even if I found it funnier, I just would genuinely feel like, I don't know, I'm not really here to spend 2 hours in this environment right now, you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So maybe if you brought this up into 20-minute episodes, 25-minute episodes, I'd be a little bit more into the idea of it. But overall, something for me just didn't click.
I will surprise you. This was developed as a TV show. And then
I'm not surprised.
In real life, Rada's mother died, and she decided to cut the story and turn it into this autobiographical, semi-autobiographical film, much closer to life. So all the artwork that you see from Radha's mother in the film actually is real mother's work, and some of the photographs are there as well. So that's kind of like, blurring the lines between what is the creation, what is the reality, and that's super interesting. But I think I agree with you on, at least on this point, that it could have been a little bit shorter. That would definitely improve that. For me, still a great film. I gave it 4 stars on the Letterboxd. What's your opinion?
Despite, again, I feel like I'm sounding like I'm very down on it. There are many, many good things to take away from it. I think I would give it probably a 3, which again, that probably isn't very representative of some of the quality that it has. But I think balancing it out at a 3.5 on our Blockbusters one sounds pretty fair, no?
Yes, absolutely agree with you. So this is the our Letterboxd account when you can check it out. Whatever we've review here, we gave it just our kind of average score out of 2. And links to that you can find in the show notes. So this is 40-year-old version. This is not a new film. It was released last year on Netflix, but as we go coming closer to Oscar season, some films will be kind of talked about more and more, and this is one of those films, but probably will not, get there. But again, this is definitely worth your attention, in my opinion. So we are staying on Netflix for the next 2 films, and one of those is a British movie. One of those is a American drama. And do you want to? What's your choice for the next film we want to review?
Let's go with The Dig.
Things like this are usually done through museums.
Yes, but with the war coming, they couldn't embark upon any new ventures.
Well, I've been on digs since I was old enough to hold a trowel. My father taught me.
What are they?
We're standing in someone's graveyard, I reckon. Viking? Oh, maybe older.
Mr. Brown is an archaeologist.
Well, I'm an excavator.
You've come to dig up the mounds.
So you think there's something beneath?
Who are those men?
They're from the museum.
Ye gods! Mrs. Pretty, I think you'd better come and see.
Why would anyone want to bury a ship?
I'd expect this is a grave of a warrior or a king.
But there's more. There's much more.
War's looming. All hands are on deck to excavate before hostilities begin.
The Dark Ages are no longer dark.
Everyone's going to want a piece, and this is your find.
So, The Dig is a British drama directed by Simon Stone, based on a novel by John Preston. This is one of those films that Netflix have kind of revealed that they will be releasing every week a new film, and this is one of those new films starring Carey Mulligan and Ralph Fiennes. Also, we have Johnny Flynn, Lily James, and Ben Chaplin. This is a film set in 1938-39 when in Suffolk, in England, and where archaeologist called Basil Brown, played by Ralph Fiennes, embarks on a historical important excavation of Sutton Hoo. This is again, this has happened. This is a real story of this guy who comes from like a working class. He's never had a proper education as an archaeologist, never studied it, but it was so good, so passionate about it, so good in what he did that everyone kind of knew him in that area, and he helped so many people with restorations, with digging out like things from the ground. And then this woman called Edith Pretty asks him to help him to dig some mounds of hers. Then he finds remains of a boat, right, that was kind of hidden there, and it suddenly turns into a big thing because like it is probably older than they think. So This is a typical British drama, you know, like you have those two characters from, they are different age. So he's a little bit older, she's a little bit younger. She's struggling with her health, and I've not seen Carey Mulligan looking that kind of weak and pale in like as long as I've seen her. I think she also plays an older character. Like she looks quite old there, and there is this relationship between them. Nothing is said, you know, like everything is kept inside, like a typical British way. Everything is like just like lips are tight and everyone keeps kind of going through and nothing is said. Okay, so this is the drama between those two people. She doesn't have a husband. She lost her husband, and she's got some money. I don't know where she's got the money from, but she's definitely, you know, kind of wealthy. She's from a wealthy family, and she's got a son that she's taking care of. And then Basil appears, and it sort of goes this way. I'm not sure if you kind of notice, like there's gonna be something between them, like maybe like this kind of maybe romance, but not like physical romance, but more like, you know, like a relationship when he's obviously started playing like a kind of father figure to the guy, and suddenly halfway through this movie just takes a completely different route.
What is up with that? This was, oh my god, yeah.
And in this different story, the I don't know who decided, but I think we don't have, like, someone look at the script and said, like, listen, nothing's happening between those two. Let's put some young people there so they can do some fucking. And they got Johnny Flynn and Lily James to fuck.
Yeah.
And that's what the story is. I mean, Lily James they tried to make her look unappealing as they could, so they put the glasses on her.
Yeah,
on
that's
her face.
so funny. Yeah, like, I don't know, she's this woman here is too beautiful. We need to make her look like a loser, so let's put some glasses on her. Like,
yeah.
No. It's like, it's not, you're not helping anything here.
Yeah. And that movie was about 2 hours, which kind of felt a little bit long. Again, you know, I like those films that are set in the past and they tell me something about something that happened. You know, I kind of don't know much about what happened in England. You know, I kind of like history, archaeology, and stuff like this. There is an interesting stuff going between Carey Mulligan and Ralph Fiennes. Ralph Fiennes is actually great in his role. You know, he's kind of like, he's embraced it. He's living Basil Brown with his accent and his mannerism. He feels like this guy who's lived there for whole life, you know, and that's interesting to watch. But then the stuff that's happening in the second part, I'm just like, man, what is this? Is this like a soap opera or what the hell? And overall, it wasn't bad, but it also, like, just I can live without it, you know.
Yeah. A few of the positives about it is I do think most of the performances are pretty fantastic. And Ralph Fiennes is great in it. I think Carey Mulligan is also spectacular in it, because, like you said, not only does she, you know, physically appear quite real, but her actual, like, physicality in the movie is exceptional too. Like, she seems like her health is deteriorating rapidly as well. The only sort of weak point in it is the kid, I think, has a few lines where, you know, I just didn't really buy what he was saying, but whatever, you can forgive that. I totally agree with you in regards to the kind of, like, the weird turning point in the movie, which is, it's so strange, because, like, I remember rolling my eyes at the sequence where his wife first arrives. We first kind of, I think that's the first time we even get mention of her, right? And she arrives, and they have this kind of awkward moment because he's about to go to dinner. You know, he's been invited into the house for dinner, and then he has to kind of, you know, skip over that, and we get that sequence of her. She's like, you know, kind of getting ready, and then she looks like bitterly disappointed by the news, and almost there's like a sense of jealousy in that sequence, because, you know, outside the window you see Basil and his wife. I think it's May, maybe, or Mary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And there's this kind of weird, like, streak of jealousy or something that happens there, and then the movie never touches on it again.
Yeah. Just leaves it like. Yeah.
And it feels so peculiar because I roll my eyes thinking, this is so dumb. Please don't make them have to have a relationship. Like, it's so unnecessary. Like, what I wanted from the movie is kind of what we got, aside from this big kind of like lump that they threw in the middle of it, which is that they just have a really close bond. And they share this appreciation over history and archaeology. You know, because it's kind of what we're introduced to in the first few minutes of it. Like, he's a wee bit standoffish. He says to her, sort of, you know, is that why you're here? You want treasure? And she responds, being like, no, I've been interested in, you know, archaeology since a child because of my mother or father or whatever. And there's kind of then like a mutual appreciation between the two of them, and it felt like that was amazing. Like, that would have been just amazing to have in and of itself. Like, these two people, and they're maybe from different generations and different backgrounds and different social classes, and yet they are able to bond over this like incredible experience that they're having without it ever having to be romantic or, you know, anything like that. It just didn't simply need it. And it feels like at one point, oh, we're going here, we're going to do it, and then it goes, maybe not. And it kind of does a real disservice then to the character of May as well, because she's exceptional throughout it. She's an exceptional person throughout it. She stands by him no matter what. She motivates him when he's ready to give up. She is so compassionate to the young boy and to the family as well. Like, she's an incredible person in it, and yet you kind of get this moment of like total disservice to her where she shows up in the bedroom and it's kind of weirdly unannounced, even though she's been writing him letters, and you know, and it kind of feels for a second that maybe he's not actually in love with her, and then it's like actually they are, and they have their own sort of relationship themselves, and maybe his first love seems to be like knowledge and learning in the past and history. You know, that's what he loves in life. That is his true love. But, you know, it kind of then leaves this incredible wife that he has just to the side as like a sort of side character, just sort of standing there awkwardly. And I feel like that's a little bit of a shame. And then you're absolutely right too, when they seem to introduce this other set of characters about halfway through the movie, and immediately they start plowing through this sort of like, you know, unhappy relationship between these two people, and this like, you know, this unrequited love or, you know, attraction that these two other people have because they're both like young and attractive people.
Yeah.
And like I read a brief part of an article about people being upset about what's her name, Lily James, about her character, and, you know, the disservice it does to the real life woman, because it makes her just seem like a sort of like clumsy, only there for, you know, like that she's interested in this guy, and, you know, like she's just kind of there because of her husband at the time, when actually in real life she was an incredible woman and had a huge role to play in the discovery of artifacts at this site, which, you know, so it does really feel like they just wrote this sort of stupid character into it for no reason whatsoever. Like, I almost wish they had just said, they're not part of our story that we're telling. They can be there in the background. We just get like, you know, we just get like side actors to play them. They're there, they exist, we know they're there, but this movie is not about them. You know, it's about Basil and Mrs. Pretty. Right, so and that would have just felt like a better movie to tell.
Absolutely, yeah.
And kind of to wrap up from my rant on it is I found a lot of the editing very weird. At the start, I was kind of happy with how quickly it got to the point. Like, he arrives at the site, and within like 2 or 3 minutes in the movie, we're already establishing that we're going to dig here, right? And then very quickly after that, we get the part where the dirt kind of collapses. And I'm like, where is this movie going to go now? Like, but then it just kind of, there it kind of goes back to the way that it was then. And they kind of go back as we're back digging again, right? So it went like cut. It was happening. Everything was super fast. Like, we've got a big story to tell, and we can't wait to get there. We want to get it established right away. And then it kind of gets to that point, and then it just grinds to a halt. It's become so slow, and you're like, all right, I'm starting to really lose interest. And then it had this really weird edit that kept taking me out of the movie, where a character would be talking, and then their voice would continue on, but the scene would cut away, and it would show like them doing something else while they were still talking, and then maybe it would cut back to them talking again. I don't know if you noticed this, but at several points it threw me off, because I was like, is my TV out of sync? I kept getting pulled out of it, because I would pause and go, is she meant to be, am I meant to be like a scene ahead or something here? What's happening? And I don't understand why they did it. It didn't serve any purpose to the movie. It just seemed like someone had a little editing trick that they wanted to do, and they threw it in there at several points in the movie. But I just found that it kept lifting me out of it and going, why is there someone talking here, but it's not a voiceover? It's just a continuation of the conversation they were having, but we're no longer part of that conversation. Very weird.
I've noticed that, but it never was like, I never thought this is a problem for me while watching it, or but I found it kind of like, oh, this is this artsy trick that I wanted to use. Maybe you could do without it.
But that's my problem, is that it just kept taking me out of it. I stopped caring about what they were saying, because I was too busy thinking, what the hell's going on? You know. It's a beautiful looking movie. The style of the movie is fantastic. It's shot wonderfully. It's just not a good movie, I don't think. What would you rate it on your Letterboxd or on?
I gave it 3 stars. I was kind of generous that day.
I'll agree with you on that there. I would probably give it lower, but it's not really going to affect our score if I go to, because I would only go like 2.5, so I'd say 3 is fine.
This is The Dig, available on Netflix. This is a British drama about how to keep your emotions hidden and how to dig them out. And we're going to move on to something completely opposite. When we had this cold Britishness, in the 30s, and, those tone colors. Now let's go to Chicago, late 20s. And we have a recording session, and there's jazz and blues involved, and Chadwick Boseman's final movie. This is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
A 1, a 2, a you know what to do. This be an empty world without the blues. I try to take that emptiness and fill it up with something. But they want to call me Mother Blues. That's all right with me. It don't hurt none.
Way down south and
Where's the horn player?
I got a friend.
Come on, Levy. You rehearse like everybody else.
I'm gonna get me a band and make me some records. I knows how to play real music, not this jug band shit.
You call that playing music?
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. Go on and fire me, I don't care.
When I got there, they began to say.
That's to get the people's attention. That's when you and Slow Drag come in with the rhythm part. Me and Cutler play on the break.
Levy, the sooner you understand it ain't what you say, it's what Ma said to count.
We'll be ready to go in 15 minutes.
We'll be ready to go, and Madam says we're ready to go, and that's the way it go around here.
When I was watching this film, and that was just around Christmas, and I thought to myself, Connor will really like this film because he really likes jazz. I think you mentioned it so many times that you really like kind of listening to jazz. And we spoke about Chadwick Boseman being great actor, great loss again. He's not the only actor playing here. We got Viola Davis, we got Glenn Turman, and the director is George C. Wolfe. This is based on a Pulitzer Prize winner, August Wilson's play. So this is a film that is based on the play. You can see this is theatrical. It doesn't hide it, but it takes advantage of those amazing, great talking scenes between the characters. And you have here pretty much everything that film like that should have there. So it's claustrophobic. Like you have people in the room that is kind of damp and not really cozy. You have a recording studio run by 2 white guys who you see that I kind of like take, I don't know if they take advantage of, but they definitely want to benefit from whatever Ma Rainey is. So she's this queen of jazz, queen of blues, that she's like this great character, and they ready to go for, get her everything she needs, and she's definitely using it. It is really intelligent in the discussions that the characters have, and it's undermined all those discussions. There's racism across it. Every character who's in this film went through racist treatment, and each of the characters try to do something about it. They try to, break out of it. Ma Rainey's way is just to be this cold-hearted bitch that takes everything she can and doesn't want to hear no for an answer. Chadwick Boseman's character is this guy who's very talented, very flamboyant. He buys shoes at the very beginning of the film. He doesn't have money, but he buys those shoes. This is like incredible as well. And he's got a talent, but he's being tempered down as well because he tries to break out and he's got big dreams. But what's going to happen to those big dreams in this reality? I found this film, at the beginning when I finished watching it, I kind of couldn't, I wasn't sure what to make out of it, but it's been almost a month since I watched it, and I still coming back to it, like thinking about the scenes of it. Like there's a recording scene with this character that stammers, and they keep on re-recording. It's just like, wow, okay, that's amazing. The discussion that those musicians have, and Chadwick's performance in it. I think this movie is one of those kind of hidden gems that Netflix has, and people should watch it. What's your opinion?
Believe it or not, I did not like this movie.
Oh,
I'm joking. I thought this was a great movie.
Oh my god, you got me there.
Sorry, I couldn't. There was you set it up the whole episode. I couldn't not take it. Yeah, no, I thought this movie was fantastic. From the opening sequence where they're running through the forest, it's amazing because it opens with such intensity, and you feel like your mind immediately runs to the obvious, which is that they're probably being chased because they're running through in the kind of dark forested area, of like the south, and you feel like you're probably about to be introduced to them being like chased by like clan members or something like that, right? And then it doesn't. It turns out to be that they're going to like a kind of secret underground concert happening in the forest with Ma Rainey, and obviously they kind of have to do it under the cover of darkness. This local black community have to do it under the cover of darkness because of racist, basically. And then you get that amazing opening sequence where you get introduced to her, and the lighting's fantastic, and you immediately get introduced brilliantly to her and her huge personality, as well as Chadwick Boseman and his like incredible arrogance as he steps up on stage level with her, like almost like he immediately feels like I deserve to be up here in the limelight just as much as she does. And then you can tell that like wickedness of her as she like starts to belt out, to get the spotlight back onto her. She belts out like a huge, note so that the spotlight of the stage comes back onto her as he fades kind of back into the background. And it's just an excellent opening sequence because it introduces those two instantly. What I really enjoyed about this movie, and because I didn't expect it, and I didn't watch any trailers or anything beforehand, was how small of a movie this was. I did not expect this pretty much to take place all inside of one building. I did not expect that whatsoever. I fully thought we were going to go from like location to location, but it's not. It's tight, and it's kind of claustrophobic and condensed, and that's part of the plot as well with the kind of summertime Chicago heat. Like you're seeing them trying to like get the fans working. You're seeing she needs an ice cold Coke at one point. You see Chadwick Boseman trying to bust the door open to get out into the alleyway for some air. Like that claustrophobia of this like concrete building is almost a character in the movie itself, and I really, really enjoyed that. I enjoyed how short it was as well, like a minute or an hour, 30 minutes. Because it just served that small sort of day in the life, that little slice of what these characters got up to pretty much in a day, and how much evolution they went through in that short period of time. And then it ends with, like an incredibly what's the word I'm kind of looking for it? I don't want to say a bombshell, but it ends in a really impactful way that I did not see coming either. I did not see it, like I seen the screws loosening throughout the movie, but I didn't see it quite reaching what happened at the very end, and it was fully believable what happened. Like, I believed that this, like, it had built it up and it set up these characters in a way that I believed what happened could have happened, and it didn't feel too ridiculous or out of line or anything like that. And yeah, you're right, like, so many overtones in here of racism and kind of that Ma knowing her. She has that great line where you could tell, like, she knows what she's worth, because she can't, in the moment that she gives them what she needs, which she refers to as the moment that they capture my voice on that tape, they don't need me anymore on this session. They can get rid of me. So she realizes that she holds all the power. And the moment that she records that and signs away the leases, she's sacrificing the power. She's giving it away until the next time or until they need her again. But in that moment, she holds all the power, right? And I think that's such an incredible dynamic for the entertainment industry in general, particularly when it comes to black musicians or black actors, where that they want to use that community for profit and gain because it's popular to, but the moment that that they are the moment that they've got what they needed, it's like you can be set aside now. We're back to, like, the things that we know, back to writing the stories that we want to tell or making the music people want to hear, right? Because we've got all we've needed from that for the time being. And I feel like that was a really, really excellent theme that ran through it. So I would highly recommend Ma Rainey's Black Bottom to anyone that just was interested, I think, in just a really good short story with really interesting characters set in a really, really fascinating scene, with some amazing acting to go with it. Not to mention amazing music too. You can't forget the music. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's definitely incredible. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is available on Netflix, and if you enjoy this movie, I would recommend reviewing or rewatching a film from 2017, I think this is, or 2016. This is Fences, starring Denzel Washington and Viola Davis. This is based on the play, also by August Wilson. And I think this is Denzel Washington. Actually, he set out to put those plays as a screenplays for movies for few of them in the future. So we'll probably see more films like that. Really interesting stuff. And like I said, at the very beginning, I didn't know what to think about it, but this movie stayed with me. So many images stayed with me for a long time.
What would you like to rate it?
Absolutely 4 stars.
4?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I was going to go a 4.5. So it was. We appear to be at a stalemate. Okay, yeah, let's. I don't know. I feel like I should fight you on this one for 4.5. Okay, 4 it is. 4 it is.
Okay, I wanted to say 4.5, but hey, you won.
Yeah, 4.5.
So this is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and this is it for the films. But stay with us because we have one TV show we wanted to discuss. Definitely Connor wants to discuss this because I kind of lost interest, almost. And we are switching to Disney Plus right now. Disney Plus, and the flagship TV show right now is WandaVision. Da-da-dam. So we've seen already 4 episodes, and we've discussed the first 2, and now we want to just quickly touch on two last episodes. They are called Now in Color, episode 3, and episode 4, We Interrupt This Program.
We now have first-person intel from inside the Westview anomaly.
What are we looking at here? Is it an alternate reality, time travel?
It's a sitcom.
Starring 2 Avengers?
It's a working theory.
Well, I know the apron is a bit much, dear, but I am doing my best to blend in.
Hello, dear.
Hiya, kid. Hiya, kiddo. Life moves pretty fast out in the suburbs.
I think something's wrong here.
Should we just take it from the top?
Wanda!
I don't know how any of this started.
What is outside of Westview?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's about. It's probably just a case of the Mondays.
So, interestingly, episode 1, we are landing in the sitcom era of the kind of 50s, 60s, right?
Oh, yeah, episode 1 were 50s, then we moved
50s, yeah.
60s.
Then moved to 60s in episode 2. Then suddenly, up towards the end of the episode 2, we see color appearing, and everything changes to color, and then we land in episode 3, now in color. So we are in the 70s, so this is a completely different TV show. We've changed the kind of setup of the house. House looks different, the clothes look different, there is a different opening of the episode, and in this episode more and more stuff starts kind of bleeding through. The main kind of plot of this episode is that Wanda is suddenly pregnant.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, and like what is happening, because we probably, as you probably know, Vision is not a real person. He doesn't, he probably has a tool to make things to her, but I don't think he can
a tool to make things to her.
Yeah, but like I don't want to say dick, like I shouldn't be saying that. But he cannot plant the seed. He cannot plant the seed, if you know what I mean. But suddenly she turns out to be pregnant, and interestingly, pregnancy actually it's like in every probably TV show or film you've seen. Is happening instantly, so there is no like a long period of time, but suddenly 1 minute she's got the small belly, then she's got like a bigger belly, and now she's almost ready to pop. And one of the characters spends so much time with her, and something happens towards the end of the episode that she kind of spills something that makes Wanda go ballistic, and she kicks her out from the episode. And that was like big, I think it was like a big reveal for anyone who's watching this TV series. So end of episode 3 was a glimpse on the outside world. And I was thinking to myself, okay, that's interesting, because we kind of see very little of what actually is happening, what is reality, what isn't. But now we kind of see, okay, we've got some theories. We see another character there approaching Geraldine. And I was thinking to myself, so episode 4, right? So episode 4 is probably, it's going to be another, 80s right now. It's time for the 80s sitcom. And I was quite surprised when it wasn't. But tell me, first of all, before we jump into Interrupt This Program, tell me a little bit about Now in Color. What was your kind of thoughts on this episode?
I think what I love what this show is doing. Unsurprisingly, probably to many, right? But because it's set in a sitcom, right? It feels like it's all sort of laughs and it's all sort of silly and it's all like fantastical in many ways as well. Like it leans into that that sort of fantastical side of it, as you mentioned, like the pregnancy being sort of expedited and hurrying through. Because that's the way a lot of those sitcoms were. Everything was sort of happy-go-lucky. Sort of, they were designed to not be sad. There was not really meant to be much, like emotional weight to them. They were designed for audiences to be this sort of idyllic view of life, right? You know, white picket fence type thing. And why that works here so well is because, as you mentioned, Vision is not real, nor is he actually able to give Wanda children. And we're starting to see more and more, you know, into the idea that this is happening in Wanda's head. So with it, it actually brings with it such a sadness that she, in this world that she seems to have created inside her mind, and we've seen that when she glitches Vision out, and he starts to notice something weird is happening, and she glitches the sequence, right? And it loops back around. Or when the guy comes out of the manhole cover with the bee suit on, and she says no, and it like reverses it back the way. So we're getting these glimpses that Wanda is playing this out inside her mind, okay, or something to that effect anyway. So it brings with it such a sadness, such undertones of sadness that, as we know, she loved Vision so dearly as we've seen in Infinity War, and then because of, you know, at the beginning of Infinity War, they had tried to run away, and she tried to fight to save his life, and then obviously she almost kills Thanos at the end of it in an attempt to save Vision. So she has this like real deep love for him, and it was set up through multiple movies. And then here she is inside her own mind, and she is playing out a sequence in which they are living happily ever after. She gets to have him in this like white picket fence suburban town. They're having children. It's amazing, and yet none of it's real. And that actually has such a sadness to it that those sitcoms, they kind of touched on themselves, but they never really went into it. They never actually addressed the sadness in them. That, like, you know, you could detect it and it was there, and you would be like, well, that's actually quite sad, but it never was really, you know, the main reason behind any of the episodes. It wasn't ever a main talking point. So I think what they're doing is so clever in that way, is that, you know, it's when you think that little bit further into what's actually happening, it's really, really sad. And I could tell that this was the case because Anya, while she does enjoy the MCU quite a lot, she found that so sad when she was delivering the children, because she was like, it's not real. And it's not, and that's a horrible thing. And imagine, like, you know, for us two sitting here, like, we don't really have that same experience, you know, because we can't like bear children, you know. But to imagine going through in your mind that emotional distress of fully believing that you had a family and you give birth to children, for it to not be real, it's kind of really, really heavy stuff. And I don't think a show like this feels like it warrants it. I feel like it doesn't need to touch on something like that, and yet it is. And then, sort of aside from that, one of the other things that I really liked is this is actually the first time that we ever hear of Ultron since the Ultron. It's Age of Ultron. We haven't heard that name mentioned, or Pietrov. Pietrov, just long forgotten.
Pietrov
in the MCU. And to see her reaction to it, and at the same time getting Geraldine's reaction, where you can tell that she doesn't really understand what's happening either. Something is going wrong with her. She can't quite seem to put the thoughts together. It's almost like Alzheimer's or something, right? Or dementia, where it's like I can't quite, you know, connect the dots here. Something is not adding up. I know what I said. I'm pretty sure I said it. I know I have a memory of it, but I don't know why. We don't get to see anything in this episode then as to how she gets kicked out or anything like that. Vision returns to the house after having a very interesting conversation outside the house with the two characters with the painted backdrop, and he's like sawing through the fence, or sawing through the walls. It's so good, and they're acting really strange, and Vision is detecting something's weird, something's not right here. And I think this show is just doing such a clever job, and I'll talk about it in episode 4 as to why I think it's doing an even better job than I probably would have even given credit for at this point. So I'm thoroughly looking forward to each week, and I think it's doing that thing that I've mentioned before on here that great shows or movies do when they're part of a franchise, which is where they make the older thing better. And this is already like the mention of Pietrov and the mention of Ultron already makes me intrigued. Like, do I want to go back and watch Age of Ultron? Do I want it? Because do I want that little bit of a refresher to see if it tops up, and do they come back to that again? Or are we going to get more about Pietrov? We're going to get more about what happened, obviously at the start of that movie where, she is in, or both of them are in Strucker's place. That's where that movie opens. Are we going to see what happens pre-Ultron, and those pre-Ultron sequences make the Ultron movie a better movie? Who knows? But I can't wait to find out every week, and I think that's why the show is rocking it at the minute.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you. If so, now I will tell you why I kind of lost interest, and I'm probably not gonna stop watching this, or I'm not entirely lost interest, but I kind of imagined what was happening in the MCU Disney studio when they were planning this series, and probably someone sat down and said, hey, we're just gonna do every episode in a different style and do like a small thing that will reveal a little bit about the kind of true story, but not until maybe episode 8 or 9 we'll see really what happened. And someone said, I will stop you there, John. Our viewers will not persist with the show if it is too long, if it try to hide things too long. So maybe episode 4 or 5, let's do it 4. Let's just do like explanation episode. Let's tell everything we know to the people. Let's show them what they want to see. Show them what really happened after the kind of return of people. Let's show them who those characters are, what is really happening from the outside. Let's put them in our feet, in our position. Because, when I look on IMDb, I can see that like first episode had 7.5, and then second 7.9, third episode 8, then episode 4 9 stars. So many, like the same amount of rating, like people already like jizzing from like seeing people coming back. Oh my god, this is almost like this is not Infinity War, this is Endgame. Oh, just after Endgame, oh my god, this is what I wanted to see. And I feel like, oh yeah, all those Disney people just congratulating like, why don't you just keep on giving us what you were giving us for the previous weeks? Wait with the explanation, maybe just not that much straight away. And that's why I'm so disappointed. This TV show didn't take a stand just to be completely different. It just returned to, hey, this is, we are still MCU, let's say this is still your favorite characters, your superheroes, they are still here. Don't worry, it's all fine. And that's why I'm disappointed.
I don't think that that's an invalid argument, because there's certainly a part of me that was like, I want this show to go all the way into the weird, right? To do every episode like this. But then as I've been watching it, I've found myself being like, I want to kind of see what's happening on the other side, because we've established with like the little kind of ending sequences on each one where they sit down in front of the TV like that's the end of this week's episode, and then it pans back through the TV screen and we find that someone's watching it. So we know that there are people monitoring this situation, and we've seen the sword stuff already. So part of me has been like, okay, I think that it makes sense to peel back a layer. What particularly excites me about it then is that peeling back this far on the 4th episode, when we know we've got to go to 9 of them, really says to me that they have stuff planned for later in the show that people have not yet predicted.
Yeah.
With such an MCU drought now for so long, people have been going wild and predicting as much stuff as they can and scraping over every single piece of information that they can find about the show, that makes you feel like people feel like they've got the plot completely sussed already. And where I feel like this episode number 4, even the title of it is great. Like, it is a break from the regularly scheduled programming. where this really kind of turns to the audience and winks and says, you know, would you see what we have planned, is the sequence where they are putting the clues on the board, and they're putting the characters down there, and they're writing stuff about the people who are in the show and who they are in real life in the MCU world. And then they also have things like written on the board, like the hexagons. Did you catch this?
Yeah.
Right? So like, what's with the hexagons?
Exactly,
Because they know that us as audience on this side
asking
are
the
going,
same questions. Yeah.
what's happening with what's the hexagons all about, right? So and so they're turning to the audience and saying, you think you figured it out, but we know where you're at this stage. We're completely stringing you along where we want you to be. It says to me that, you know, we go back to next week and we're in the 80s and we're doing the 90s. I know there's an episode that's based on the US office, so we're definitely going as far as the 2000s. So we have at least 3 more episodes based where it's going to be like fully just in this bubble that we have, which leaves us then, I guess, 2 more on the other side to explain what's happening in some fashion anyway. So I think they are moving this along at a really, really great pace, and this was just the right time to just say, okay, let's just show you what else is happening at the same time, instead of just leaving it all to the very end and then doing a big information dump. You know, like, it's like, though, we've stringing you along, you're enjoying it, and you've got questions, and we know you've got questions, and we're gonna put the questions in front of you, because we wrote the show and we know what it is that we're doing. There is definitely an element of it where I'm super excited about so much of the actual MCU stuff. Like I like I said, I loved getting in episode 3 about Pietrov and Ultron, getting to see the blip, like this episode opening in the hospital, was an incredible choice, you have to admit, because that always felt to me like that was always one of those hand-wavy movie moments where we don't ever need to really talk about it. Like, we seen it happening when, you know, Hulk snapped the gauntlet, and everyone came back, and we got a wee teaser bit, you know, in Far From Home, where we seen people kind of like, you know, come back, and that's it. Like, don't ask too many more questions. You don't really need to know. It doesn't really matter, you know, because like the more that you dig down into it, the more holes you find. You know, like, if someone was on an airplane whenever they got blipped away, do they just like appear again in midair even though the airplane's not there? And they just, you know, like, see, the further you dig down, the less sense it makes. So it felt like one of those things that they were never going to go back to. But to go back to it in such an intense way, like back into a hospital, we're getting a character who, if you are following the show and if you've been following the pre-announced stuff or following the MCU enough, you know who she is. And if not, you're not quite sure, and then you get introduced to the fact that she was in Captain Marvel as a child, and now she's grown up, and that her mother set up Sword, which we haven't really seen except for at the very end of Captain Marvel, where he had Fury on the spaceship, right? And it was very much at that point too, because we haven't seen anything since then. So it was like, how's he on a spaceship? Why is he on a spaceship? What is the spaceship? And yet this episode just very passively mentions the fact that there's like off-planet missions that happen. You know, like Sword deals with like intergalactic threats. There is stuff there. We haven't really seen it thus far, but it's there. And you know, it's tying up that little drop of information where we had Samuel L. Jackson on the on that sort of ship or that headquarters or whatever, at the end of Captain Marvel. Right down to like little tiny things like the way Jimmy Woo introduces himself with the magic card after being like obsessed with Ant-Man's magic. And Ant-Man, if you remember, Ant-Man does a magic trick and he's like completely perplexed by it. And it's just like, that's fan service. That's a tiny little, like, you know, like, hey, do you remember this? Right. But the rest of it is them like continuing to just build this universe, just put little pieces here and there, and they don't have to draw a lot of attention. Some of them can be throwaway lines, you know, like Monica Rambeau in Dick Geraldine in the comics has superpowers, right? So there's a super subtle question is, if you remember in the hospital when she runs into the guy and who is like blipping back into place, and she bumps into him. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Start. It's like he's quite badly injured, like for what seemed like just like a small bump. Like it didn't seem that bad, but he seemed like he took it really hard, right? And so does she have powers already? Like have they happened to her and we just don't know it as an audience member? And yet they're not being like, look at the moment here where she has powers, right? Or, you know, it's just like maybe a little nod to it, you know, that it was there. Because I remember I didn't pick that up at the start, but I remember thinking when she got shot through the walls by Wanda, because we go back to the episode 3 sequence and we see Wanda kind of like ejecting her from her reality, and we're getting that great sequence of her kind of twisting and turning and becoming slightly more paranoid and even potentially evil. But I remember asking, like, how? Actually, Enya asked me, but I remember thinking the same thing. I was like, you know, how did she survive that? My first thought was, oh, the reality isn't real. It's not. She wasn't actually smashed through a wall or anything, right? It's all make believe. But then I thought, well, what actually, if it is? But she just has powers, you know. So, and that's why it didn't. That's why she was able to go flying all that way through the sort of like force field, land on that field, and not be dead and have all of her bones broken. We don't know, but we do know that in the comics she has powers. So maybe they are just like, you know, again, subtly just getting to it without having to, you know, do a big, like, we don't need a Monica Rambeau movie, you know. We can just subtly introduce it over the course of a few episodes, just bit by bit by bit, and then you get to piece it all together on your own as an audience member. And I think that's what's super fun here. And I think so far WandaVision has been the perfect transition from the movies to the TV. That's exactly what people have wanted. Whenever we got Daredevil and Punisher and all that other garbage years ago, this is what people wanted. They wanted, like, oh, it's Marvel stuff and it's TV episodes. They just never were that good. So I think WandaVision has really, really landed on both feet with that kind of transition, and I'm so hopeful that they can keep it up through Falcon, Winter Soldier, and Loki later in the year.
So did you actually watch Daredevil, or you just saying it was not?
No, I watched it. Yeah.
I don't agree. I think it was a more classical kind of approach to storytelling, but still, I think it's incredibly good TV show.
Calling Daredevil garbage is probably a bit unfair. Like Iron Fist was garbage. Luke Cage crap. Didn't like Jessica Jones. Daredevil's biggest problem. Jessica. Daredevil's biggest problem, as with most of these shows actually, was that they were too long. They've had so many filler episodes.
Yeah.
Like I felt Daredevil could have been like a 3, maybe 4 episode season, and it would have been absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But they just kept going on.
Yeah,
like,
I lost interest in, I think, series 2 or 3. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know, I like listening to you because you got great points in there, and you tell it from the perspective of a fan, or like a real fan.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, you know, I got a little bit excited when I saw, you know, whatever's happening after the blip. I think this sequence is great. I just feel like this episode could have been, like, in general, could have been handled a little bit better in terms of don't give us everything. And I get your point about, okay, we're giving a big reveal halfway through the series, but it's not like a big reveal. This is something we already know and we kind of guessed, so we just reiterating, and it's doing a fan service on so many levels. It just doesn't feel right, you know, like it's just getting those characters from Thor, Dark World, from Ant-Man, from Captain Marvel. You can say, oh, it's tidying up the MCU, but it's also fan servicing people, and just keeps like just getting on my nerves a little bit, because like I think this is the episode when people who were watching it from the outside, like, oh, what is the show? Who is this about? And they got like kind of intrigued with the first 3 episodes. And now they see this that requires so much knowledge. They'll be like, nah, not watching this anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is the fan service episodes. I will be keep on pressing with this show. I think I invested some time with it, and I'm kind of curious how this is gonna play out as well. And it's a good quality show. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing anything about this. It's got still so much things unrevealed that I'm gonna stay for them. But I think like this episode was actually a downer for me. And I'm looking forward to next 5 episodes.
Fair enough.
This is WandaVision or Scarlet Witch and Vision, however you want to call it, on Disney Plus, and it's available weekly. If you're waiting for the TV show to end and watch all episodes in one go, we are gonna spoil them for you in upcoming weeks, because that's what we do here. Spoil them as much as we can.
Yeah.
This is so this is it for this week. Connor, shall you do the outro, or maybe just
no? I've no prep done for the outro, and the intro really took it out of me.
The outro is really straightforward. Thank you for listening, and this was a blast. Subscribe, rate, and comment on our show. Please check out our website. Connor advertised it at the beginning. I will repeat it, theblockbusters.net. This is where you find our episodes, all the links where you can find our episodes, our Twitter accounts, our Letterboxd account, pretty much everything. Our theme music is by Scott Holmes, and you can find more of his work at scottholmesmusic.com. Artwork was beautifully drawn by Connor Boyle, and I have edited this episode in the future. Yes, in the future. And you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Spotify, and wherever you are listening to. Next week, we have some more movies to watch. I think Connor wants to watch One Night in Miami, and we'll be reviewing that next week. We'll be also talking about WandaVision. But we have some exciting stuff coming. We're going to probably do more episodes about, themed episodes about our favorite films from a specific genre. Maybe they will be tied around the film that's coming soon in the future. We are definitely thinking about doing the best Bond movies, but when this episode's gonna be aired, who knows? If you have any suggestions about the movies we should watch, review, and talk about here, please give us a shout at BlockbusterSpot or directly at DesignConnor or at RDefaulta on Twitter, or you can just email us hello@theblockbusters.net. Just email us as well. That's it for today. Thank you for listening again. Thanks, Connor. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll hear you next week. Bye.
And like that,